Okay, that's a big difference. All right, Canto 10, chapter 23, text 41. Nothing like having intelligent people around. Okay, thank you. Nunam Bhagavata Maya Yoginam Api Mohini. Is that the verse that's up there? Okay. Yadvayam Guravonirnam Swartamuya Mahe Dvijaha. Please chant. Nunam, indeed, Bhagavataha, of the Supreme Lord, Maya, the illusory potency, Yoginam, for great mystics, Api, even, Mohini, is bewildering, yet, since, Vayam, we, Guravaha, the spiritual masters, Murinam, of society in general, Swaarte, about our own real interests, Muyamahe, have become bewildered, Dvijaha, Brahmanas. EBT translation, the illusory potency of the Supreme Lord certainly bewilders even the great mystics. What to speak of us? As Brahmanas, we are supposed to be the spiritual masters of all classes of men, yet we have been bewildered about our own real interest. The Tika of Sanatana Goswami, what misfortune! We have all been bewildered by Maya. Certainly, Nunam, the Maya of the Lord, bewildered us, practicing Jnana Yoga as an anga of karma, yoginam. They identify themselves as yogis. Or, Maya bewilders yogis, what to speak of us, engaged in karma. We are superior, Guravaha, to all men inquisitive about the three types of yoga. Shukadeva has already described them as having no intelligence, but thinking themselves intelligent, verse 9. Or, we are the instructors of all men, since it is said that Brahmanas are the gurus of all Varnas. We have been bewildered, Muyama. O Brahmanas, he Dvijaha. Or we Brahmanas have been bewildered, Muyama he. Atmane pada, form of the verb, is poetic license. That's a little Sanskrit grammar thing. Nunam Bhagavato Maya Yoginam Api Mohini Yad Vayam Guravon Nirnam Swarte Muyam Ahe Dvijaha. The illusory potency of the Supreme Lord certainly bewilders even the great mystics. What to speak of us? As Brahmanas, we are supposed to be the spiritual masters of all classes of men, yet we have been bewildered about our own real interest. So I thought we'd talk a little bit about Maya, since this is about Maya, and I'm in the middle of reading a book about Maya, and so I want to also plug this book. Unfortunately, it's a very expensive book, and so you'd have to just have like one copy in a library. It was given to me as a gift. This is by Gopal Hari, who's a member of the Shastric Advisory Council. He's also the younger brother of Radhika Raman. And it's called Maya in the Bhagavat Purana. So I'm going to be drawing quite a lot on Gopal Hari Prabhu's wonderful work for the first part of this class. So thank you, Gopal Hari Prabhu. So in the Vedas themselves, the original four Vedas, the Rig, Sama, Yajur, and Atharva Vedas, the word Maya is not used in the sense that we Gaudiya Vaishnavas use it at all. It's used in terms of someone having some mystic power, someone having some magical power. It's used either for good or evil over others. And the way that people get this mystical power is by rituals like these Brahmanas who are engaged in rituals. And they're getting these mystic powers from the fire. In fact, Agni and Soma are called Mayavan. Van means to possess, so that they possess Maya, or sometimes they're called Mayin. And so by doing these particular rituals, you get some power. And I mean, I think in a lot of fictional literature, right, we hear about, like, wizards doing, when we were little kids, reading fairy tales and stuff. They do some ritual, they say some incantation, and they get some power, right? So that's actually there in the original 4 Vedas. You do some fire ritual, and from that fire ritual, you get a power. You can create magic. And the magic, particularly, you can change your form, you can change your appearance. Right? Who do we know in the Shastras who used powers to change their form or appearance? Putana. Prapanika. Yes, there's so many. Actually, most of the demons that came to Vrindavan were like this. The Trinavarta, the Agasura, they were all shape-shifting demons. They could use their power. Marichi, right? He used his powers to look like a deer. Pralambasura. So they have this ability to change their form or to change their appearance. And we read about how the demigods also did this. When did the demigods all change their forms? The Nal and Damayanti story, yes. Also, when Bali Maharaj attacked the heavenly kingdoms, the demigods changed their forms and all left so they wouldn't be detected. So in the 4 Vedas, Maya never refers to the world, and Maya never refers to cosmic power in general. Basically, in the 4 Vedas, Maya just refers to anything you can't explain by ordinary laws, something beyond the ordinary laws of magic. All right, then we go to the Upanishads. So the word Maya is only present 5 times in the 13 early Upanishads, and then only in 3 Upanishads, and only in the Svetasvara Upanishad is that identified at all with the material world or with cosmic power. Otherwise, again, in the Upanishads, Maya is associated with magic that belongs to a particular person. Now we see a switch that happens in the Mahabharata. In the Mahabharata, again, Maya is generally used to refer to the magical abilities of a particular person that's used for good or evil. But then they're getting their Maya, instead of through ritual and fire, they're getting it through yoga, and it's called Yoga Maya. The Maya that's attained through yoga. And in general, in the Mahabharata, yoga simply means a process of connection. It doesn't always mean like some kind of mystic meditation. And interestingly enough, the way that Yoga Maya is usually used in the Mahabharata is exactly the opposite of the way Krishna uses it in the Bhagavad Gita, which is part of the Mahabharata. And that is that either demons or saintly persons are using the Yoga Maya they get as a means to control the world. So we think about, the different mystic displays that are used to control the world. So instead of Yoga Maya as a liberating force, instead of using yoga as a liberating force, they're using yoga to get entangled. And of course, this is a problem with all the kinds of yoga. If we look at karma yoga, in today's translation, the acharyas are talking about whether the brahmanas are referring to themselves as karma yogis or gyan yogis. Whether we're talking about karma yoga, gyan yoga, dhyan yoga, also called Astanga yoga, or bhakti yoga, all of them can be used in ways that entangle you rather than liberate you. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explains this problem to Sanatana Goswami with the analogy of Sarvagya, the learned astrologer. We put this in our Essence Seekers book. So if you perform karma yoga, you may be overcome by wasps, by hornets. And there are these, you've heard of the murder hornets, yeah? Along with all the other problems we had last year. So in Bengal, they have these humongous, they're like this big hornets. And the hornets will eat bees. Bees are always a symbol of a saintly person, and they will eat the bees. And it's interesting that although both bees and hornets are social creatures, bees are cooperative and hornets are not. So hornets, the more powerful hornets, will kill the less powerful hornets. And the male hornets are so awful that the female hornets would rather not produce eggs than to have anything to do with those male hornets. So they're really like awful. You know, there's class exploitation and gender exploitation going on in the hornet society. So Mahaprabhu's using hornets as a problem of karma yoga. Because when you get into karma yoga, you have to also have karma. It means you have to say, I am a Brahmana, I am a Kshatriya, I am a Vaishya, I am a Shudra, I am a Brahmachari, You have to identify yourself by some kind of an upadi in order to perform karma yoga, because then you're saying, I'm a grahasta, therefore I'm going to be a grahasta for liberation instead of for sense gratification. But the problem is, as soon as you put a label on yourself, you can become exploitive. And we even see this in our Hare Krishna movement from people who, I'm sorry to say, are much more doing karma yoga than bhakti yoga, although they may say they're doing bhakti yoga. And one of the evidences of this is that they start identifying with their labels, and then they exploit people who they say are at a lower label. Right? In sociology, we call this a critical theory or conflict theory, whereas Varnashram is supposed to be functionalism. I'm not going to explain that now. All right, so then the difficulty in Gyan Yoga. The difficulty in Gyan Yoga, Mahaprabhu says the difficulty there are the yakshas. The yakshas are really interesting. In the fourth canto with Dhruva Maharaj, they're explained both as punyajana, or pious people, and as asuras. And as we know, in every ancient culture, there are these nature spirits that are described as both helpful and mischievous, right? I'm sure we all grew up hearing about fairies or leprechauns or dwarves, and these nature spirits, they can help human beings, or they can be mischievous. They're kind of funny. So the yakshas are in that category. Yeah? And so when you're doing Gyan Yoga, you're studying nature, just like we're studying now in Bhakti Shastri, the 13th chapter, which is mostly associated with Gyan. It's a study of nature. It's a study of Prakriti. It's a study of Kshetra, yeah. So when you study nature, nature's kind of funny. Nature can be cooperative or nature can be mischievous. And when you're trying to understand reality by analyzing nature, you can become bewildered by the entities that control nature. And we see this in modern science. We see where people are trying to get liberated by understanding philosophy and understanding science. And some of them do come to God consciousness in that way, and others become bewildered by so many different theories, so many different ideas. And then in Dhyan Yoga, which is particularly relevant to what we're talking about here, so when you engage in meditation, you can realize the soul and the super soul. Krishna explains this throughout the Bhagavad Gita, yes? Systems of meditation, sitting up straight, chanting Om, putting the prana at the Agya chakra, right? Putting the mind in the heart, and meditating and learn and finding the soul and the super soul. There's a lot in the Bhagavad Gita about that and throughout the Bhagavatam. But what can also happen when you're doing Dhyan Yoga is you get power over the body. You get power over the mind. The different mystic powers are all explained in the 11th canto. How by in touch with the super soul in various ways, you gain various powers. You know, you can grab things from a distant place, like we can now do on our phone. Right? I just press the right buttons on my phone and a packet shows up at my door a few hours later. You know, by mystic yoga, you can do it instantly. It shows up in your hand in a moment. Right? You can become invisible. Right? There's plenty of times in life I wanted to become invisible. Right? You can control others' minds. I often want to control others' minds. If only all these other people would listen to me and do what I say, then the world would be a nice place. You know, so we have some desire for these mystic powers. And therefore, doing these kinds of this kind of meditative yoga can have that side effect. Instead of going to realization, you get bewildered by these mystic powers. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu compares that to a snake. He says there's a snake guarding the Dhyan Yoga in the north, and that can be understood as the snake of Kundalini. But there is also a problem. He doesn't mention it in the story of Sarvagya, he mentions it in the previous chapter, chapter 19, there is also a problem in Bhakti Yoga, and that is the crazy elephant. So in Karma Yoga, you have the hornets. In Gyan Yoga, you have the yakshas, or the nature spirits. In Dhyan Yoga, you have the snake. And in Bhakti Yoga, you have the crazy elephant. And male elephants have periodic times that they go nuts. It's called must. Well, they do. I mean, in most species, females have periods of fertility. They have fertility cycles, but the males don't. But among the elephants, they're always fertile, but they have certain periods of really increased desire and fertility. It's not on a regular basis like with females. And when a bull elephant goes into must, all the other bulls get out of the way. The biologists think that maybe this is so the young bulls get a chance to reproduce, because otherwise the old bulls control all the calves. But anyway, when a bull elephant goes into must, even if it's a trained elephant, it can kill even its trainer, although elephants are normally very gentle, loving creatures. But it will just destroy everything, this crazy bull in must. Everybody gets out of their way. So this is and people in Mahaprabhu's time had experience of these elephants because, first of all, they used elephants in service. And second of all, they were accustomed to wild elephants. And unlike a lot of other animals, male elephants are not easy to castrate. And so generally they use the bulls. So what is this wild elephant? It is thinking that I have better devotion than somebody else, because bhakti is the yoga of devotion. My devotion is better than your devotion. You know, we Sunni Muslims are better than the Shiite Muslims. We Protestants are better than the Catholics. You know, we Gaudiya Vaishnavas are better than the Sri Vaishnavas, or we Sri Vaishnavas are better than the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. Or I'm just better than you because I'm more devoted. You know, I'm a better devotee. And therefore blaspheming devotees and criticizing devotees. And so we go from loving everyone, Vijavanaya Sampane Brahmani Kavi Hasanishuni Chaivasupake Pandita Samadarshina, to a kind of sectarianism. You know, or the male devotees are more devoted than the female devotees, or the devotees from India are more devoted than the devotees in America, or the devotees in America are more devoted than the devotees in India, or, you know, we go into some kind of sectarian. We become we go from being a spiritualist to being a sectarian religion. So all of the different kinds of yoga have ways in which they can be perverted. So in the Mahabharata, Yogamaya is associated with people using processes of yoga instead of to connect with the Lord to get these various powers and getting these yoga mayas. All right, now we go to the Bhagavad Gita, which is a part of the Mahabharata. And there the word maya is used 6 times. And it's used there in the sense of manifesting the temporary realm, manifesting the cosmic manifestation, illusioning living beings, which is the way the Brahmanas are using it here, or to subtly guide the destiny of living beings. And Krishna uses the word maya in the Bhagavad Gita to mean both what hides him and what reveals him. Now, if we go on to the Bhagavatam, maya is used on its own, as it is in today's verse, 593 times. So we have this huge jump in the Bhagavatam for the use of the word maya. And 120 of those times it's used to mean an enchantment into illusory happiness, which is the way the Brahmanas are using it today. And then there's 110 times it's used in some kind of compound, like Maya Guna. Now, what Gopal Hari Prabhu found is in the Bhagavatam that the word Maya and the word Yoga Maya are used completely synonymously. So often we think of Maya as being just Durga, and Yoga Maya as being, you know, Purnamasi and Subhadra. But in the Bhagavatam, actually, Yoga Maya can sometimes refer to the illusory force within the material world, and Maya by itself can sometimes be connected with Leela. So that it's not an absolute that Yoga Maya is always connected with Leela and Maya is always connected with this universe. So here the Brahmanas are making, I believe that the Brahmanas are making an excuse. You know, just like the Christians say, the devil made me do it. And so these Brahmanas are going, well, Even the great yogis get bewildered by Maya. So what to speak of us? We were bewildered by Maya. Even though we're the gurus, and even though we're the brahmanas, and even though we're so great, they're really praising themselves here in this verse. Even though we're so great, I mean, it's, we can become overwhelmed by Maya. Reminds me something of Kaliya, who said, well, it's my nature. But we have a diversion between these brahmanas and Kaliya. We have a divergence. Kaliya said, it's my nature, but now I surrender. And I ask you to liberate me from the lower modes. I'm sorry that I offended you. My offense is understandable because I'm in the body of a snake. We're just reading in the 13th chapter where Prabhupada says that when you get the body of a dog, you're going to act like a dog. I mean, just the way it is. We're going to become conditioned by our body. That's true. But Kaliya says, please help me rise above that and surrender to you. And the Brahmanas do that. They just say, well, we were bewildered by Bhagavat Maya. We're bewildered by Krishna's Maya. And so that's why we didn't surrender. And they stopped there. Oh, well, that's what it is. I'm bewildered by Maya. I'm not going to surrender. And so they don't surrender. And so they don't really get out of Maya. I mean, they do to some extent when they say, as we go on from here, our wives are so much better than us. They have some appreciation for those who are out of Maya, but they don't themselves try to get out of Maya. So I see this difference between Kaliya and the Brahmanas as some indicator of what it means to be an honest and authentic devotee. I think a lot of us may be afraid of being honest about how fallen we are because it's too hard for our false ego to really admit how fallen we are. I mean, we have it as a social nicety in ISKCON that we talk about how fallen we are, but most of us don't really believe that. Most of us really believe, like these Brahmanas, that we're great personalities. So these Brahmanas may appear to be very authentic here in this verse, but they're not. They're like, we're the gurus of society. We're the Brahmanas. We're the Dvija. We're the guru. Guravon Nirnam. We're the gurus of all human beings, and we are the Brahmanas. But, we can get bewildered. Even the yogis can get bewildered. And so generally, when we talk about how fallen we are, it's like that. Well, I'm a great personality, and I'm supposed to say I'm fallen because that way I'll get prasadam. If I do pride speak, nobody will feed me. So if I do humble speak, I'll get fed, and I'll be able to address the deities and whatever, go to the meetings. But if we really believe that we're fallen, then what do? We do something about it, right? Isn't it? That's actual honesty and actual authenticity. Now, you have to start with the fact that I'm fallen. But if I really believe that I'm fallen, then I will try to become not fallen. Does this make sense to everybody? Like if I just say, well, I have this bad habit and I just have this bad habit and oh well. That's actually not honesty because I don't really believe that it's bad. If I really believe that it's bad, then I will try to do something about it. Now, the only way to do something about Maya, what is the only way to do something about Maya? Yeah, I got it. What did you say? I got to connect to Krishna. I got to chant. What were you going to say, Kamalini? I got to take shelter of Krishna. Daiviyesha gunamayi mama maya durachya. Krishna's saying, yeah, it's durachya. Mam eva ye prapajante, mayam etam tarantite. If the Brahmanas were really honest, they'd say, whoa, I was bewildered by Maya. Let me go surrender to Krishna. He was right there. He was right there. So many times we think, well, if Krishna was right here, I would surrender. You know, my problem is I can't see him. He's not right here. But he was right there, and still they didn't surrender. So of all different kinds of, you know, minor magic that people could get, whether they're getting it through ritual, whether they're getting it through the fire, whether they're getting it through yoga, whether they're getting it in a scientific laboratory. I mean, I think our smartphones are pretty amazing magic. They allow us mechanically to do all kinds of mystical power, right? Prabhupada talked about the German who surrendered to Krishna because he says the scientists are already doing all these mystical powers, right? I can project myself to another part of the world. And like I say, I can have packages magically appear at my door. I haven't learned how to be, I guess I can kind of even be invisible. Yeah, I can be at a conference and be invisible. I can change my form on a conference, look like a cat or something like that. So, of all these various powers that people can get, whether they're getting it through ritual and fire, whether they're getting it through mystic yoga, or whether they're getting it through their gyan in their laboratories, Krishna is the Yogeshwara Ishvara, as we read previously. He is the master of masters and masters of yoga. And he says, I am the ritual, I am the fire. So any kinds of Maya that could be there are there in full in Krishna. And therefore, our little attempts at Maya, at power, just like Lord Brahma after he steals cowherd boys, you know, to compare it, he's like a little firefly in the presence of the sun. So Krishna's Maya is overwhelming, and the only way we can get out of Maya is to surrender to Krishna. And we only surrender to Krishna when we really accept that our state of being Maya is, what did they say? Swarte Muyamahe. We don't know what's good for us. We don't know what's good for us. Prabhupada will often say real selfishness, real self-interest is to surrender to Krishna. So my being under Krishna's illusory potency that makes me forget him is actually a really bad place for me to be. It's not a good place for me to be. It's not, as they would say in 2021, healthy. It's not a healthy relationship with Krishna. It's not a healthy relationship with the cosmos. It is a relationship with Krishna because it's Krishna's energy. So we don't want to hate Maya. Maya is Vaishnavi. She's Krishna's energy. She's a servant to Krishna. It's not that we're hating Maya. It's just that when we're under Maya's jurisdiction, we can't function properly. We can't be who we really are. We can't be in a happy, natural state. And so to say, hey, I'm in the wrong place. I'm under the wrong energy. Well, even in ordinary life, do we sometimes feel like that? Well, my energies are wrong. My mood's wrong. I'm not able to, right? Sorry, I can't talk to you right now. I'm just not in a good space. Right? Don't people like that? So it's like that. When I'm under this illusory energy of Maya, I'm not in a good space. I can't function properly. I can't think clearly. I can't act clearly. I can't relate to others clearly. I don't know what's good for myself. I don't know what's good for the world. And so if I really care about myself, I should be honest. Man, I'm in Maya. I'm really in Maya. Let me surrender to Krishna. Let me get under the internal energy. Right? Mahatmanas tumam partam dainim prakriti mashritaha. Which can also be called Maya. It is also a kind of enchantment. They use the word mohini. So it's also a kind of enchantment, but it's a loving enchantment. Again, even in this world, when we're enchanted by love for somebody, a suitable somebody, that's considered a very wonderful thing, isn't it? Isn't it? Don't we find happiness in that when we see a Not you, right? You don't think there's any nice, loving enchantment? Well, I've asked this question. If, let's say, we woke up tomorrow morning and every single couple in the world was loving and kind with each other, just that one change, would it be a nicer world? If we just did that. So we'd much rather have people be loving and kind with each other. We'd much rather have people being under that enchantment than being under the enchantment of being cruel to each other. Whether it's husbands and wives, or parents and children, or friends and friends, or governments and citizens. So we want that kind of enchantment with Krishna. We want the enchantment with Krishna of being in love with him. So much in love with him that even if he tramples me under his feet or crushes me by his embrace, I still love him. We want that kind of enchantment rather than the enchantment of Ishwaraham Aham Bhogi Siddham, that these Brahmanas have. I'm the big masters of the world. So questions, comments? Yes, Maharaj. So what Maharaj is saying, for those of you on the internet, is he says he's being a devil's advocate and saying a person might say that in their religion, you're not trying to get free of these anarchas, you just believe in the Lord. If it's Christianity, Krishna says, be thou perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. Now, I would agree that on the material level, we cannot be free of anarchas. Because even if you come to Sattva Guna, Krishna says sometimes the mode of ignorance overwhelms the mode of goodness. Sometimes the mode of passion overwhelms the mode of goodness. So even if you come to the mode of goodness, on our own strength, we're never going to be free of anarchas. I would absolutely agree with that. It's impossible. You can take every self-help course in the world, and you can eat the perfect diet and whatever, and every once in a while you're going to mess up. Even if you're really, really in Sattva Guna. And we see this in the Bhagavatam, even with the great sages, which is what the Brahmanas are saying here, that even the great sages get bewildered. So even if we try to become, really Sattva Guna, I am forgiving and equipoise. I am so spiritual. Even if we try to be that way, every once in a while it doesn't work out. Every once in a while something comes along and we go like, oops, how did that happen? How did I get angry? How did I get lusty? How did I get greedy? How did I get envious? Where did that come from? Whoops. So I would agree, only by Krishna. Now, do we just have to believe in Krishna? Well, we understand that just believing in Krishna is step one. It's a great step. Adhushraddha, that is a fantastic step. I believe in God. I believe he exists. I believe there's a path to get to him. That's fantastic. Now get on the path. My guru died to save me from the world. Well, if you believe in him, then you have to follow him. Faith without works is dead, it says in the Bible. Yes. Yes. Daivirpur was saying Krishna's name is not different. Yes. 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 Daivirpur was saying that it says in the Bible, if you call on the name of the Lord, you got to be saying, you got to do something. Not just, I believe. If you believe, do it. It's like the problem these Brahmanas have. Yes, we're in Maya. Okay, do something. Yes. Excellent. So Gopi's saying that it's about our mindset and our choices, what kind of relationship that we want. And yes, then it's about association. Absolutely. That's why we go through so much trouble to keep this international society. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.